Good morning, Lottie.
Good morning, David.
Welcome to the channel. It's great to have you here. So, to introduce you to everyone who's lucky enough to be watching, Lottie Skuthe-Cook is an experienced leadership coach, facilitator, and trainer who supports senior leaders and their teams to grow and develop through her bespoke training and coaching programs. Prior to coaching, she successfully held director positions responsible for quality and standards, business development, and sales operations. Lottie has now racked up over 20 years of experience as a coach and facilitator, and is both a master certified coach, an NLP master practitioner, and a member of all three coaching organisations, the ICF, the AC, and the EMCC. But there's much more to Lottie than just her credentials, as you're about to find out. She describes herself as someone who lives and breathes her values of trust, honesty, and respect, and who thrives when working with clients who share her core values. So I'd love to start by asking you, Lottie, can you tell us a little more about the work that you do now in the coaching space?
Yes, of course. That's a big question. Thank you, David. Yes, what I primarily do in the coaching space now is what's called executive coaching. I have a little bit of a slant on that one, and team coaching. So I currently have got 4 teams that I'm working with as the team coach, and then I'm also doing a lot of individual coaching. Primarily commercial, so that it's not what's known as life coaching to many people.
Thanks, Lottie. You mentioned you have a little bit of a slant on executive coaching.
Yeah, 'cause people say, "What type of coaching do you do? Is it business coaching? Is it executive coaching? Is it life coaching? Is it career coaching? Is it transformative coaching?" And to me, I coach the human. It is about the holistic view, because I have a true belief in that we are one and the same body, whether we show up at home or with friends or in the office. It is one and the same body, and we can't. Whilst we may believe that we can totally compartmentalize and say, "Okay, I'm going to leave work at work and home at home," I personally don't believe that that is fully true or fully possible. Because our subconscious is with us the whole time and process things, despite the fact that we've said, "Okay, I'm not going to think about that consciously right now."
That was wonderful to hear, because I hear and read so much about boundaries between, work-life balance and leaving work at work, home at home, and that almost felt like permission for the boundaries to be blurred.
Mm. And for me, it's not giving permission to let's take it, or let's aim to take it, your private life to work, or aim to take your work home, but recognize and accept that it all lives within you. That's how I see it.
Thanks, Lottie. And you mentioned that you work with one-to-one with executives and also with teams as well. Can you tell us a little more about what you do with group coaching with teams?
Mm. So we distinguish between group coaching and team coaching, really. What I do is team coaching. So I work with the 4 teams that I'm currently working with. I work with the leader as well as the whole team. And the difference to facilitation is that when you're team coaching, I am there as the guide on this journey, but it's in the hands of the team, the leader and the team, to find their own answers. So I'm guiding them to find the path to do that. So it's a lot more about opening doors and letting the team together explore what needs to happen in order for them to become high performing, or even higher performing, because the majority of them are already high performing. But what might be the extra additional piece?
I'm curious to ask how team members feel perhaps comfortable to open up with you when you're working with their boss as well? And if that does show up as a theme in, almost a potential conflict of interest way.
No, I personally haven't had those issues. Because every conversation, every individual conversation I have is strictly confidential. So typically, I start with the leader, and I work with the leader, and I have pre workshop meetings, and I have post workshop meetings, because the leader is the one who's guiding as well, guiding the team, obviously. But before we start the whole process, I then have individual conversations with each and every team member. So I'm just going through that process with the latest addition to my team coaching group, and that is strictly confidential, and that is for me to get to know them and for them to really get to know me. We might be looking at psychometric at the same time as well. What I will bring to the team coaching day, would be insights from all the interviews, but nothing attributed to one and the other person. And yeah, I guess luckily I haven't had the issue with whether or not there's a bloodline or potential conflict of interest when it comes to leader and team.
I see. So it's almost noticing the themes of the day and sharing the insights anonymously. And I'm wondering, what are some of the positive results that you've seen and experienced for those teams and organizations as a result of the work that you've done with them?
Oh, it's amazing, because it's as I said, the majority of them are already high performing. It is just a matter of how do we define high performance? What does high performance mean? And there isn't one. We can Google it and see. I don't know how many different definitions of it, but it's about what is that team needing in order to be at their best the majority of the time. So they may perform purely commercially amazingly already. But what might stand out is that they think they know each other, but they don't really. What might not be present is really deep vulnerability-based trust. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni and his 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. But it is the starting with the trust, but moving it from um, into vulnerability-based trust, right? Instead of a reliability-based trust, which is just a matter of whether I can rely on you to perform a task within the team. So people start sharing who they really are with each other and what makes them tick and what makes them potentially frustrated as well. What is it that also triggers them potentially? And then the next bit is, and this is not many teams that are great at it when we start out, but it is the healthy conflict piece. How do we actually put things on the table in a psychologically safe environment where there is trust and where one is knows that whatever comes out is with good intent, is with positive intent. And if we can layer that, we're starting with the vulnerability-based trust, and then we layer on top of that the healthy conflict. Wow, the result is fantastic.
And thanks, Lottie. And if someone was to say, well, but if my team's functioning very, very well commercially, why do I need to bring more of my own personal vulnerability, my own personal character, or whatever else it is? Why must I take more of myself into work? If the team's doing well, the bottom line's good, why can't I keep work and my own personality and my own private life separate?
What if it could be even better for everybody? What if you turn up to work And actually, it turns out you love going to work. You liked it before, but you can turn that into love. And when I say love, I want to be careful with that as well, because this is not about working harder or working longer hours. It's quite the opposite. So part of this journey is but in order to go from reliability-based trust to vulnerability-based trust, we need to be more open about who we are. And we're humans. What makes you tick doesn't make me tick. Possibly one or two things, but in the main, no. Because that's in our values. And it's our values that are really core to us and that will make us do really great things or sometimes not so good things.
Right. You reminded me of, I think, a slide from one of the recent courses I've been on, a leadership course with Animas, and it was talking about that one person in a team, one person's coping method might be another person's trigger, but with no knowledge of that, one person might be thinking, "Goodness me, why are they behaving like this?" They know it triggers me every time, and the other person's thinking, "Well, this is my coping method." And then the conflict arises, and I'm guessing where your work would step in would be to identify and share that.
Mm. Yes, then conflict arises. But then it's most likely not healthy conflict. It is unhealthy conflict. And all of a sudden, we have more elephants that are walking around the room that are not put on the table than we can potentially think of. Yeah. And then things can go wrong. And that's what, by coming together and really becoming an even higher performing team and knowing each other and being able to therefore help each other and step in, take accountability, be the one who says, okay, the leader is out for a period of time. We need to run this team now. We shouldn't be depending on the leader.
Mm. We talk a lot in coaching about not creating a codependent relationship where the client feels as though they need the coach and they perhaps attribute their successes to the coach versus their own actions and their own agency. I'm wondering if that's similar for leaders and leaders of teams as well.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because, as I'm saying, that's the difference between I do quite a lot of facilitation as well. But facilitation and team coaching are really two, it looks on the surface possibly very same, but it is really facilitation. It could be a dependency, at least on that day, because I may be the one who pulled the strings and I say, okay, so this is what we're doing because that is the remit that I have been given. Right. No problem. But with the team coaching, yes, often I have it that people start looking to me. And to me, it's like, yeah, okay, well, now we need to explore. How are you going to get there? Not with me. And the team coaching journey should also not be forever at all. Just like coaching, David. You're not stuck forever together. It is about getting to a point. And the point is piece of string. Who knows when that point is? Yeah. But that's the success measures that we put in place.
It's strange. I once had a leader tell me that he prides himself in doing himself out of a job, and essentially building a team that's strong enough to function without him. And overhauling an organization. He was an expert at restructuring teams, hierarchies, and then he'd leave the organization typically within 5 years. And I was thinking that it's funny how as coaches, one of our objectives it would seem is to do ourselves out of a job. Similar way.
Absolutely. So I'm helping to do myself out of a job as well as the leader out of a job, if you wish. No, but it's beautiful to see. I have seen so many successes, and where all of a sudden problems that arise, which they do. That's part of business, about life. Problems arise, and they are easily solved. and there's communication going, proper communication, no side communication, no, not this on the side and people not knowing who said what and why, and passive aggressiveness. And here, I'm not happy with this. This is where we're at. What do we need to do about it? Who can help me? How can we complement each other in the team? Because as you say, someone's coping mechanism can be someone else's trigger. Okay, so how can we actually get to a point that we complement each other here?
Mm, I see. I think it's the book called The First 90 Days taught me the concept that in any organization there's a shadow hierarchy who you really need to speak to get things done, who really pulls the shots. And typically in a family-run company, it might be people who are relatives, for example. And I guess you're smiling. I'm sure it's a theme again that you've explored with your clients.
Yeah. And that's where we look at the whole stakeholder mapping and what would stakeholders see, feel, and hear. When we're looking at high performance, it's looking at what do the team see, feel, and hear, or would they see, feel, and hear if the team was even higher performing, and then what would stakeholders, all stakeholders, yeah, and as you say, we've got some shadow stakeholders as well as we've got the day-to-day, everyday here stakeholders as well.
Thanks, Lottie. You mentioned earlier that the elephant in the room, or the elephants. I'm wondering if we could switch slightly to talk about panthers, specifically Grey Panthers. So your business that you're a co-founder of and the director of, Grey Panther, which I believe is a management consultancy. I wondered if you could tell us more about that and how management consulting goes with coaching. Is coaching one of the tools in your arsenal as a management consultant, or is one process, intertwined, and how are they related?
So the management consultancy, I can freely say that that is what HMRC would like to, or that's what I'm classed as a business. Uh, because with HMRC, you need to have the exactness of this is the remit that I can. So what I do, leave the management consultancy word aside. Actually, what I do is coaching, facilitation, and training. And that's where I divide my time and enjoy spending my time and being with my clients.
I'm curious as to how your work with Grey Panther has evolved. As I'm aware, it's been going for, I think, established 19 years ago in 2005. And obviously, the world. I've spoke on a few interviews about the world of coaching and how much it's changed, even in the last 5 years. I'm wondering how your work has changed since that your company was founded.
Mm. So the company was founded actually by my late husband in 2005. And I had already got my own business on the side, but I was then more in working in the sales and customer service arena, so customer relations. I then took over the business when Gary passed away, and for me, how it has all evolved is uh, then not many people knew what coaching was. That was more thinking about sports coaching, etc. In businesses. Today, coaching is well known. And the amount of people that I work with now have been in contact with coaching one way or the other. And I'm not talking about sports coaching, I'm talking about the business side of coaching or life coaching. Um, and of course, the concept of team coaching has come in the last 5 years. So that's something very different to what has been before it. I've worked with teams all along on my coaching journey, and I would say I always use, even when I do facilitation and training, I use a coaching approach because that is so innate in me that's how I operate. However, there's a difference between using a coaching approach and being the team coach. So that is new. But the whole world of coaching has absolutely evolved massively since I trained.
Mm. Thanks, Lottie. And I know that your coaching approach is also heavily influenced by your master NLP practitioner qualification. And one of the conversations we had before the interview was how Lottie was saying that you can tell a coach that coaches with an NLP style compared to one that doesn't. And I wondered, particularly as someone who myself is very interested in NLP and becoming NLP qualified, how NLP goes hand in hand with your coaching.
For me, it's a foundation, but also when I did my NLP training, that was transformational for me as a human being, personally. Totally transformational. Changed my life. And I think I mentioned when you and I spoke about NLP, I could not reel off. Some of my colleagues are very good at saying, I'm using this method, or rather, I'm using this exercise or that exercise to this. I'm not. I couldn't reel off 10 exercises even um, that I did during my NLT time, but it's so in me. It's so ingrained in me. What I would say the biggest difference is probably that I notice with others is uh, the ability to listen, the ability to relate, and the so holding space. So I have coaching sessions where my coach turns up with their couple of, hello, good morning, whatever. And then we go into the coaching and I might ask one thing and it might take 15 minutes before the person in question comes up with their own answer. I'm not saying that that is all NLP at all, but it seems to me that when I do other courses and we are a number of NLP trained practitioners on the course, that this is something that is much more seen, heard, and felt in us as coaching, our coaching method.
It's interesting when I think of NLP, I think just from a sort of I heard about it, I read about it in an old Tony Robbins book, and it spoke about playing perhaps an image of something, replaying it in our heads again and again and again and again, perhaps after a negative experience, and taking that image and playing with it, changing it, manipulating it, and editing it so that it perhaps becomes a cartoon in order to kind of reduce its power on us and its impact on us. And that's my very elementary knowledge of NLP, but it sounds like there's much, much, much more to neuro-linguistic programming, to give it its full name, than that little part of it.
To me, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is the excellence of communication on all levels. That's my definition. And that is how we meet each and every person or animal even in our life. And how we take that on board, how we communicate with people.
It's interesting. One of the first modules of the Animas coaching diploma, we learnt about the power of silence and just holding and listening to understand versus listening to respond was the concept we were being introduced to. And one of the activities was one person as the client acts as the client and speaks for 15 minutes about whatever they like, and the other person can nod and keep eye contact, but they can't make a sound. And that was extremely difficult initially from a coaching perspective as a coach trainee, as you feel like you're not contributing, you're not adding anything. But then as the client, and the 50 minutes takes forever for the coach, but as the client, the 15-minute goes like that. And it's like permission to just be seen and felt and heard without guaranteed, without being um, interrupted. And it was a game changer. I couldn't believe the power of it and how different it was being on the different opposite sides.
It is extremely powerful. And it is not uncommon that I have coachees coming and they spend the first 10 minutes talking because they need to get it off their chest, whatever the matter is. And then to go back and say, okay, what did you notice? What stood out?
So thank you.
How did Sorry, go ahead.
It feels like permission from a coach with over 20 years experience for me in my practice that I could simply hold space for a client for 15 or 20 minutes while they speak, and I could not say anything, and that's okay. That's still coaching. I could work less hard for them to get more value.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And it's fascinating because a lot of people also feel, and this is in the team coaching space, is a very interesting concept because I do hold space. And there may be someone in the majority of boardrooms, and there are stats on this somewhere, but the majority of boardrooms or a majority of meetings with a group of people is 20% that does 80% of the talking. I think most people have heard that. And when we get into team coaching, it's about letting everybody talk and letting everybody be heard, which also means that people need to start to learn to be comfortable with silence. And as you said, when you did this, and you were then in a coaching, learning to become a coach, if I understood you correctly. Yeah, that's one thing. But here we've got people hyper dynamic. They've got lots on. They can't really take the time. They don't know what to do with themselves. Reflection is not really on the cards. I need to get in. I want to fix this. Okay. And your colleague X actually needs time to process because your colleague X is a think to talk person, whilst you are a talk to think person. So it's how we process. And that is the most fascinating to watch and to observe when it happens in teams until they get comfortable with, okay, this person needs more time to process internally before coming with his or her view.
It sounds it. I wish I could be a fly on the wall at one of your team away days. And I say away days, it's reminding me of a team away day I went on years ago in my IT career. And one of the activities we did at the beginning, we went round the room and gave each person 60 seconds to speak, guaranteed no introductions. And I think the questions were, how are you turning up today? And what would you like out of the day? And for some people, it was permission to have a huge dig. And other people, it was, I think for the introverted members of the team, it was quite stressful. Do I have to talk for a whole minute? Can I just say hello and can it be moved on? But it was interesting to see how much some of the members of the team struggled with this, especially if someone was speaking, like, poo-pooing a project that another team member had done. And for that other team member to sit there and take it without being able to respond, you could see them boiling over, desperate to respond. But it felt like it meant that we started the day where everyone had been heard. So everyone was effectively on an even keel before all the rest of the activities commenced, and the natural talkers did the 80% plus of talking, and the non-talkers did the sub 20%. But I liked it. I thought it was really powerful, and it didn't take that much long. It didn't take very long to achieve.
It doesn't, and people get into it. It's just that awkward silence in the beginning and the awkwardness of it all if they have never done it before. It's also, I quite often use what's your one word? How do you arrive here today? What's your one word? And people go, one word? I don't have one word. And then they're forced to do the one word. And it's fascinating. I love my job, David. I'm super lucky. I love my job.
I can really tell it really comes through. I know looking through your qualifications list, there's so many I'd love to ask you about. We could go on for 10 hours. But there was one that caught my eye as someone who works with, corporate executives and C-suites and, huge multinational organizations. I then saw that you're a Lego serious play facilitator and thought, and that for me was the odd one out in a list of really serious looking qualifications. Lego serious play facilitator.
Yeah. A week worth of training from early morning till late night, how to actually facilitate with Lego. That's what I did 2013. It is the coolest method possible. And I have some teams that are hyper skeptical when I say we're going to do Lego. Others go, oh, thank you. Finally, we're going to do something that's fun. And of course, it is all about that we're using our hands and our all our senses at the same time as we are thinking. And it also promotes the 100% of people get 100% time to talk. So everybody, like you were saying about the 60 seconds that you'd had, everybody got that. Here is also, and you speak in metaphor. It is phenomenal. Phenomenal. This was not team coaching, that was more facilitation, but I was running a workshop in Singapore a couple of years back. And for 2 days with the marketing team, for 2 days, we did nothing but building Lego. And they had the most speedy results in terms of how to get to the point and make decisions. So the decision making becomes completely different when you use Lego. It becomes non-personal because you're talking about the model rather than yourself or him or her or them. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I'm wondering if it kind of distracts people from perhaps being too much in their heads, worrying about what everyone might think about what they're saying next, and maybe overthinking it. This is speaking from the perspective of an overthinker. I wonder if it adds quite a welcome distraction there, something else to focus on, but then subtly still, work matters, corporate matters are still discussed, and things are progressed.
Oh yeah. And interesting with this team in Singapore that I was talking about, there are 2 ladies that never ever even seen Lego before. Also the most introverted people. One of them, the most junior in the team, not liking to speak up to, because we had one very high level executive in there. She wouldn't, until we got on with the Lego, she wouldn't even open her mouth. Hated being put on the spot. Until these 2 ladies then got the Lego in their hands and created the most unbelievable Lego figures or creations, and talked, and they talked like running water because they were talking in metaphor, and it took away me. It's not the focus on me, me, me. It's a focus on the model. Amazing.
The burning question I have is, so if you were to, meet an organization, you've got a room full of directors in there waiting for you to arrive. How do you go about facing that room full of directors and introducing and saying the order of the day is going to include building Lego models, and for A, people to take you seriously as a coach, but B, when I've done corporate away days before, people tend to feel very awkward right from the start. And some people will do everything they can to get out of even going, as they don't like, what they perceived as forced play. So I wonder how you go about creating an atmosphere of trust the process, let's roll with it. And don't worry, it's not going to be half as awkward as you think it might be.
David, every time I meet a team or a group of people, regardless of if I'm training, facilitating, or team coaching, the key for me is to get into feeling trust and safety, psychological safety, to the greatest extent as soon as possible. So I always spend a good time in the morning or at the start of the day, whenever the day starts, for people to get to know each other and relax. So I have a range of exercises that get people into the space. And then, uh, as I said, Lego is someone will have most people have signed off. Someone in the team will have signed off that that's what I'm going to do. So someone knows about it. Everybody else will. There will be skeptics going, Wait a minute, I thought we were going to do strategy today." "Oh yes, we're going to do strategy, but we're going to do strategy through Lego building." And people go, "Right, okay." And then they start and then they change their minds. I have never, ever had anyone who has not had 100% thumbs up after having gone through the process. Never. Skeptics in the beginning, but skepticism is something that I deal with every day and in the job that I do. Because there are people that come into any three of the variations that I've said, not quite sure, don't want to be put on the spot, don't like this, don't like that, don't like this. Would much too busy. Too busy, we don't have time for this. And I also have coaching clients that I am, there's a company that said we want to award coaching to these people. So my whole team is going to have coaching. And I meet my coachee, not always with a chemistry call first. And sometimes people don't understand. They get worried. Why have I been awarded coaching? So the communication before coaching is awarded is really, really key. But again, I don't take the time because that's time gained later. I take the time to go through, why are we here? And the most powerful thing of them all, David, is we all have a choice. Until death do us part, we all have a choice. And I do say that to people. If you don't want to be here, please leave. I'm just the outside. Feel free. And they go, "No, I can't because I have this commitment and I will get sacked if I do that." Yeah. And that's a choice. "Yeah, but I have to have a job because I need to feed my family." Yes. But then that's a choice of yours to stay here and do this job here to feed your family. And when people realize that we really do have a choice, um, so much shifts. Because I am opening the door and I'm saying, "Please, feel free to leave. I'm not going to hold you here. This is not a prison." And a lot of the skepticism goes then. Because all of a sudden it becomes about my choice. I have been given permission to choose.
It's such a powerful topic. Coach it, and it was interesting how you said coaching as an award a couple of times. That awarded coaching, and I imagine certain executives might feel as though it's being inflicted on them as a kind of a punishment of some sort, a kind of mass performance management masquerading as a benefit. And it's so interesting to hear your experiences of facing into that skepticism and, if anything, working with it.
And also normal. It's okay to be skeptic. That's fine. I'm not going to take that away from anyone. I get curious about it. What's behind it? And of course, if people do feel threatened, by the process. What if it's team coaching or training or anything like that? If there's just they perceive a threat somewhere, then of course it's fight flight. Yeah, how do I get out of this?
I'm wondering if we can open this up and just from my own perspective, I encounter skepticism quite a lot as a coach broadly. I've had well-meaning friends in the past say, "Well, you've had several jobs, so surely you're the last person who I'd want coaching me on how to, you know, hold down a career," for example. Or, I've had skeptical comments about what is all this coaching nonsense about? Or, who are you to mentor someone that's perhaps more senior than you or earns more money than you and their business is more successful than yours? So and all of those comments, it's quite easy to take them to heart. Whether it's in an organizational context as an internal coach or whether it's as completely independent, and to feel that you need to justify yourself to everyone and prove something. I'm just wondering what comes up for you when you say that? What advice would you give to people like myself who face that on a regular basis?
The need to justify and prove lies within you. Um, and 9 out of 10 times, that's not what we need to do. Rather the opposite. But it's facing into, you said it before, facing into. So someone who says, what is this coaching nonsense? First question for me would be, do you know what it is? Do you know what coaching means? How do you define coaching? Oh, it's therapy. Oh, no, it's not. I'm not a therapist and I'm not going to become one. So on and so forth. And it's what else? What did you say? So, what's this coaching nonsense? How can you? Yeah, this is you who have had many careers or have had many different jobs. How can you advise on career? But you're not there to advise on career. That would be called consulting. You're not there to advise on. You are there to guide with the questions that allow your coachee to find their own answers. You're not there to give advice as a coach. Mentoring is different. Um, and it's realizing how you can help and how someone can be helped by just talking things through and allow reflection to come into the world. That's something that we as humans today, we are really quite poor at reflecting. We don't take time out because we don't have time. We don't have time to reflect. Question is, how much time do we gain by taking time to reflect? So what advice would I give you? Ponder. What's this need to prove yourself? To justify your existence as a coach? Who holds that need? And why? And again, find out why people are skeptical. What's behind it? They might have been, someone might have gone, because coaching comes in all, the chemistry needs to work. If the chemistry doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Coaching doesn't work. If the chemistry is not there, it doesn't work. And I am definitely not the right coach for a lot of people. I am absolutely the right coach for a lot of people. But that needs to be there. And when they're asking questions around your coaching, what are they really asking? What's the fear? Because that sounds like it's all fear from their side.
Mm. Thank you, Lottie. It's a topic I could lean into all day long. There's so much coming up for me just around things I've heard. When people start to criticize you, that might be a sign that you're elevating and you're becoming more successful. And Taylor Swift sings that haters will hate. And I think there'll always be critics and skeptics of us, and to acknowledge that that's fine. And we don't need to turn everyone into a lover of coaching and a massive advocate of coaching. And not everyone's meant to be a coach. I think that's quite an important thing to call out. But in terms of, you mentioned earlier, we mentioned time. In terms of our time, that's sadly coming to an end today. On the topic of reflection, I wondered if you would care to reflect on your experiences of the neurodiversity course with Animas that we were both together on as delegates.
So this is combined with quite a lot of emotions from my end. Um, it is. I said that NLP was transformational in my life. The second most transformational in my life since the NLP is then the neurodiversity course. I thought I knew a lot about neurodivergence, and in particular, ADHD, autism, and dyslexia. Those were the ones I felt very well versed in for personal reasons. Um, and after the first session, first hour and a half, I was completely blown away. David, completely realizing how little I knew. And it was like a whole new world open for me. And fast forward, so this is 20 weeks. And fast forward into half of that time, about halfway into the course. It is like someone has thrown a ton of bricks in my head and go, duh. But of course you've got ADHD, Lottie. And I don't need a diagnosis. I've done the course. I've learned so much. I feel so rich. And the weight of my shoulders, when I realized the impact of my ADHD on me and the world around me, I felt light like a feather. And I promise you, I'll never be light like a feather. But it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And talk to me in a year's time and I'll tell you if I'm still there. But I've been carrying imposter syndrome a lot, worked a lot with it and tried to learn from and na. But that moment when I realized this is really truly me, and this is what I've been fighting, I put my imposter syndrome to bed. Well and truly. And I've yet to find out whether I'm gonna have my imposter syndrome showing up again. Because yeah, might do. But somehow I actually does it. I don't think so. It's yeah, huge for me. Huge.
Wow. You mentioned before the interview, your realization on that course, but I had no idea how, you know, the impact for you.
And I'm so much a better person and human amongst humans for that course. Amazing.
Wow. No better testimonial for one of our programs. No better testimonial. So to round off today's fabulous conversation, if someone's been listening and they're really interested and intrigued, as I'm sure many will be, by our conversation and would love to get in touch and find out more about the work that you're doing, um, where can they find you and what would you advise them to do?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Under my name. My name is fairly unusual, so there won't be many more than me. Lottie Skuthe-Cook. And then also my website, Grey Panther Management, or greypanther.co.uk. And I'd love to have a chat. And that might lead somewhere and it might not lead anywhere. And that's also fine. But I'd love to have a chat. I'm innately curious about people and about the world. So yeah, come and chat. Coffee chat, as I call them.
Coffee chat. Well, we'll make sure we get your links in the description of the video and in the article as well. And all that's left to say from me is thank you so much for your time today and for your answers to our questions. The time has flown by, as it often does, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Lottie.
Thank you, David. This has been another one of those, oof, wow, for me too. Thank you very much.